Benvinguts i benvingudes de nou.
Welcome again. Here we are after this break. Let me just recap what we heard before about European collaboration models. It is clear that we need collaboration in order to work. We've seen that for the young people, it's very difficult in many European countries, also families with problems, and we've heard about a hopeful future with the creation of proper households, so homes, not just a place to live, but a home. We heard about the collaborative perspective from Bologna and then London as well, and the Netherlands. We will continue now with Javier Buron, the manager of Housing and Rehabilitation at the Barcelona City Council. And let me just remind you once again that if you have any questions for the speakers afterwards in the panel discussion, you can use Mentimeter. You want to access menti.com and you need to introduce the code 789390039. So that's where you post your questions, and then we will forward them to the corresponding speakers. So with no further ado, I would like to hand over to Javier Buron, who will discuss Housing Metropolis Barcelona, HMB. Hello, good morning, everyone. For me and for part of my team, it is a pleasure to be here to explain this operation, which belonged to the Greater Barcelona and the Barcelona City Council for some time now, and we are excited today and pleased because we can announce that we have now two private partners, Tebasa and Meina. But before explaining the project with my presentation, I would like to set out the context, especially because sometimes the PPPs are not easy to understand when it comes to building social housing, protected housing. Some people think that that is what we do exclusively, or the main thing that we do. We are working on a production program with 8,000 new protected housing that will be rental housing. Part of it, 20%, will be given right to land, but then the rest will be rented flats. Direct development, mainly. If you were here yesterday about the different management systems, 2/3 of what we do actually is that we do public developments in the traditional manner, more or less, but with as much innovation as we can in terms of our working methodology. And 1/3 of what we do are two PPPs, actually, two different public-private partnership paths. One that we will present now and in the coming panel discussion, and then the second one is an ecosystem collaborating with cooperatives and foundations, so non-profits. So that's 1/3 of our efforts in terms of newly built development. In the past few years, we've purchased over 1,000 housing units, and that is a tool. We buy to then rent, and 100% then will be for rent. And then we have 3 programs to capture empty flats, to then open them up to public housing, publicly rented housing. So that's an innovative part, and it's part of the total. So HMB, Housing Metropolis Barcelona, have 4 partners, the Tebasa, Neynor, the City Council, and AMB, 25% stock each, and we need to be able to offer 4,500 apartments to be rented in a durable fashion. So that is the summary. Why? Because there's an important shortage According to the housing law in Catalonia, there is a shortage, and we need to produce these apartments with the greatest amount of operators possible. It's an urgent, systemic, interconnected challenge, and single solutions probably are not ideal. So we need collaborations. Here is the relation between supply and demand for rented houses, moderate rents at the lower part of the screen. You see there's higher demand than supply. And in the high levels, it's the opposite. And we are concerned as a public authority. We understand that rather than a market fixer, rather than solving these externalities, we would rather become market shapers. We would like to help configure new segments in the market. So it's not about redistributing, but pre-distributing. Easier said than done, of course, and I would like to insist upon this. We have three paths: direct development, delegated development with non-profit, and delegated developments with profit organizations. For profit organizations. The three methods complement each other, actually. It is relevant also to mention the contract-based PPPs and institutionalized PPPs. It's not about demonizing anyone. They all play their role, but we need strategic partnerships and alliances. And it's about co-investing and co-deciding and co-managing and co-failing and co-succeeding and co-facing losses. So that's not always possible, and that is why we've taken one step forward, because we want to generate a company with the idea of remaining in time. I don't have the time, of course, to discuss this busy slide. You will be able to check it out later on. It'll be made available to you, but just to say that there are certain limits, and there are things that we don't want to do because, this terms, parasites and symbiosis, this is used in the doctrine to describe different PPPs. There are issues that have to do with the durability of a public-private partnership and its social approach. And then in the private sphere, there's always this concern about flexibility and the mechanisms, the development with time, collaboration with the private partner as the time goes by and as the situation changes. Just to say that every public authority needs to define what a parasite is for them. A parasite type relationship or a symbiotic type relationship is for them. The company exists, so we no longer speak about vehicle generation, and we start talking about the vehicle per se. 4,500 houses. You see the different stages to the project here, half of them in the city of Barcelona, the other half in the metropolitan area of Barcelona. The average would be 70 square meters per unit. Maximum prices in Barcelona. Protected housing is €895 per square meters, and we assess the viability at around €7, and the idea is to combine cheaper and more expensive rents up to €9 in this combination, 75%, 25%. Bear in mind that right now the average rent price is between 14, 15 square meters, euros per square meter. So it's affordable, clearly. It's not social rent, it's not people at the risk of exclusion, but it's, middle class family, and the difficulties for them is the difference between their salaries and the rent prices. And we are based on the protected housing law in Barcelona, and unfortunately there's no mercantile tax framework, legal framework, so that everybody knows what products we are talking about. And it's not helpful when it comes to the authorities either, because we don't quite know whether we want to jump into a project or not. And so it's a bottom-up approach, and bottom-up is well, it's more difficult. That's why my hair is going more and more gray and whiter. Probably this has to do with this. In the case of Barcelona, we will contribute land. We will contribute money in cash. Land will be municipal always, so it'll be given by the municipality, and we don't want to dispose of our land. HMB, they have a mixed combination, because in the beginning they were going to contribute land to the project, but now they are, well, rethinking it. And in the case of the private partner, 50%, they will mainly invest money, but under certain circumstances and with some prerequisites, well, they might end up contributing land, even units, but we'll see. I don't want to bore you with this. This is my gray hair graph, as I call it. It's a bit difficult to explain. That was from 2016. It's a PPP, an affordable rental housing. And we started with this project at the end of 2017. There was a preliminary consultation, there was an initial public tender, and nobody won, even if there was a candidate. And now there's a new tender with 4 proposals on the table, and then the company that I described before ended up winning the tender. They've created an ad hoc company called Nick Rent. I'm not going to discuss the requirements for the companies that wanted to be part of the tender. You can read that later on, but you know, you can imagine professional solvency, financial solvency, because the idea was to make it easy for the companies, and we could not be as demanding as more mature markets, as the case of the Netherlands, we just heard about in the previous presentation. The keys behind the partner selection had to do with capital contribution, the deadlines, the terms, the construction development, the rental management, and whether they wanted to collect a preferential dividend or not. That is a picture taken about 20 years ago when we signed the capital increase, stock capital increase. 12 million were invested as initial capital. We did the same, so we are now capitalized to face the first stage of the project, 600 houses that will be rented. Governance, I guess this will be commented later on. Well, it's not that complicated, because in Spain, not even in the EU, we don't have 50-50 projects, because this is absolute parity, and it had its opponents in the public sphere, also in the private sphere. Quite a few civil servants said, why not 51 versus 49%, because that was the framework they knew about. And the private investors, some of them said, okay, I want to collaborate with the authorities, but I don't want to marry them. And there's been dialogue and understanding, and the gap has been bridged. And since there is no general statewide framework as to what PPP should be like, that is the current model in Barcelona. We have a board of directors with 4 private and 4 public members. We represent the capital, but we don't have an elected term. And in common agreement, we are now choosing an independent member of the board, because that we thought would be interesting. The company will work better, and we will get the results that we want to obtain. But along the way, there might be differences, so we want to overcome these potential obstacles. So that's why we want to have an independent board member. There's the follow-up body, a body that prepares the board of directors management, so they are in charge of preparing the themes, and the public authorities, us in this case, demanded there be a controller, a public controller, because one of the peculiarities of this company is there's absolute parity. Again, everything is 50%, 50%, but the managing team is actually 100% private. The two partners in their joint venture, Cebasa is a mercantile company with expertise in the matter, so that's why we wanted to have a public controller as well, overseeing everything. So the time has come for us to start working on specific projects. Here are the 4 plots of land corresponding to the first stage of this business plan of HMB, Housing Metropolis Barcelona, in the city of Barcelona. In this case, well, this is one in Torres y Bages, another one in San Andreu, another one near La Sagrera, so close to the high-speed train station. I don't have an image of all the plots. These belong to the metropolitan area of Barcelona, so the Greater Barcelona. They are in Sant Boi de Llobregat, so near Barcelona. So we will now make decisions at the level of the board of directors, and what we will do is we will do a capital increase in parallel to the developments that we really want to work on, and for which we really want to manage the rent. So the projects that we leave in the hands of the company. We've discussed how we will split the distribution, access to subsidies from Spain and Europe, land contribution, investment, and the funding coming from the European Investment Bank. And from now on, another less spectacular phase begins, less complicated, maybe more boring, which consists of building the homes and striking a balance and generating some brand image, raise awareness among the society, and hopefully, and I guess that's going to be discussed in the panel discussion, the idea is to incentivize the creation of vehicles like this one, joint ventures and partnerships like this one in the city of Barcelona and nearby. So I think that's enough as an initial explanation, and I hope I stuck to the time allotted. Thank you. Thank you very much, Javier Buron, manager at the Housing and Rehabilitation Department in the Barcelona City Council. So probably in the next panel discussion we will continue along these same lines, new experiences, new ways of building houses, and now we will have the panelists join Javier here on the screen, and I will leave them. The title of the session is The Commitment to Delegated Promotion Between the Public and Private Sector. The moderator will be Clara Blanchard, journalist at El País. Remember, you can use the Mentimeter to ask your questions, and remember that the code is 7893939. Okay, that's all from me, and let's wait for the panelists to organize themselves, and we'll get started. Thank you.